Herbalism, homeopathy were very, very much the way of getting health care, medical care. They kind of started getting pushed out around 1920 in favor of the, more mechanistic surgery and drugs approach that.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, the podcast where we celebrate aging with vibrance and we defy the stereotypes of what it means to age. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, a psychotherapist of more than 30 years, here to introduce you to my off-the-mainstream guests who will energize and inspire you. My hope is to create optimism about getting older and help you cultivate zest and joy in this season of your life. And I love to hear feedback from you, my listeners. Please drop me a line at zestfulaging@gmail.com. I read every single comment. And to find out more about this podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. Today we have Amanda Conta-Stenkin, who is a classically trained musician and neuroanatomist, and she's originally from Argentina. And she has a fascinating story about her journey into health and wellness education. She was training in classical piano when she started having problems with her wrists. And eventually, these problems became too severe for her to continue along the music training path. And so she had to make a choice of what she was going to do. And taking what seems to be a big turn, although she told me off mic, actually, it made a lot of sense. So we'll hear more about that. She started becoming involved in research on spinal cord injury and stem cells before she found her calling in teaching. And she did that for a while, and then she became frustrated by the Western medicine philosophy of looking at the body as sick. And she discovered the power of traditional naturopathy. So we're going to hear about that. And she promotes some simple ways to help our bodies heal themselves. I have been doing some of those, and I think that they are really important. And certainly people are asking for that right now. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
It's lovely to talk to you. I'm really fascinated by this story, and I'm sure our listeners will be too, that you don't become, of course, a classical pianist by just sort of deciding that's what you want to do in college. I suspect you had been playing piano for a very long time.
Yeah, I started when I was 8 or 9 years old. So in Argentina, the school day is half day. So I used to go to school in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I would go to the music conservatory. And I took piano lessons and music theory lessons and harmony lessons and music history lessons and all that fun stuff. And then by the time I was finishing up high school and deciding what to do afterwards, I realized, okay, I want to stay in music. So I was torn between going to medical school or to college for, training in performing arts. I stayed with a music performing piano performance major sort of thing. And but somewhere along the way, when I was still in high school, I started having issues with my wrists. And we were trying to troubleshoot it, whether it was piano technique, if I had to change the technique. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of theories now, 4 decades later. But the bottom line is it was very, very painful to play. I
It
figured
must have been so difficult. It's something that obviously you had dedicated your young life to, and now it hurts.
Oh, it was very frustrating. It was kind of heartbreaking. But I was too young to be concerned with that. I just kind of was a very determined person. I was like, I want to do this. How can I do this? What's going on? I came to the States to do, checkups with different specialists and doctors and all that kind of stuff. And got imaging done, got blood work done, all the works. And in the end, I realized, okay, this isn't going to happen. And so I switched from piano performance major to music composition major just to finish what I had started. But music is a huge part of my life. It always has been. And so
Mhm.
that training also played a key role in who I am today. And I don't count it as time lost or wasted, totally the opposite. I think it's informed a lot of what I'm doing now and a lot of my understanding of how the human brain works. So everything happens for a reason, Nicole.
Mm, mhm. That's really, that's very interesting that you were able to integrate that experience into, your a positive journey and where you are now, instead of it derailing you and saying, "Wow, I've worked really hard on this, and now what?"
Right. No, and I think a lot of it was because of the support system that I had. I
Mhm.
have very supportive parents. Even in college, my living situation was kind of cool because I lived in a house off campus with a group of girlfriends, and we were all on our unique journeys, health and otherwise. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's just kind of cool to look back and see how things just progress, and and it all works out. And when I did
Mhm.
finally end up coming to the States for graduate school in the biomedical sciences, so it was a massive 180-degree
Mm.
turn.
Mhm.
Also, a lot of it had to do with people in my path. I had grandparents. My mom is originally from Syracuse, and so my
Oh.
grandparents were alive at the time, and my grandfather had been very active in the medical school.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that piece of your story.
Yes, yes. So that's why I ended up in Syracuse, Nicole.
Okay, okay, it's all
Yeah,
starting to fit together, and you ultimately were teaching med students.
at Upstate. Yep.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
and
so I got my graduate degree there in
mhm,
spinal cord injury. I had a string of mentors and teachers who were just incredible and amazing. And so I've been a very, very lucky woman all
mhm.
throughout.
I see. And I'm curious when the shine started, the gloss started wearing off of the Western medicine philosophy, because clearly you found a different way to approach the body and the mind and the soul even. What do you remember thinking, I'm not sure this is working for me?
Yes, actually, when
Mm.
I had kids and they started having some health issues, and I realized there's something missing. What am I missing? And so they were the catalyst for me to
Mm.
to open my eyes and to dare to think differently, because I had a very deep training in academic
Mm.
medicine, right? My
Mhm.
husband is a physician by training as well. And so we were very, very much steeped in that mentality. And then what we were being told to do wasn't working for our kids, wasn't working for me. It was like, okay, what's missing?
Mhm.
So yeah, in the last 5 or 6 years, I realized, okay, I have to make a huge change. With the kids, I started dabbling in herbal medicine, essential oils, so aromatherapy, reflexology, all that stuff, right? And then in the last 5 years or so, I really became interested in other ways of looking at the human body, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to resign from the medical school. I'm going to go back to school myself and take some courses in traditional naturopathy. And that's what I've been doing. But along the way, I discovered applied quantum biology, and I also discovered the world of primitive reflexes and primitive
Mhm.
reflex integration. And those two are mainstay tools for me right now in my coaching and wellness education practice.
Mhm.
And the naturopathic stuff is little by little getting weaved in. Herbal medicine, herbs are just near and dear to my heart. And the more I learn about my family history, I realize I come by it naturally because my grandma's on both sides. My great grandma on one side, my grandma on the other were hardcore herbalists.
Mhm.
So
Is
it's
that
kind of
an
cool.
Argentinian, is there history in Argentina with the native population using these methods?
Oh, for sure. But I don't know that my family came to it through that because they were, Italian and Spanish immigrants.
Mm.
Um, but my one grandma probably did her share of learning from the Native American women in the city where I grew up, but she also had other interests. A lot of the women back at the turn of the century, Nicole, and this is true everywhere in the world, right? At the turn of the 18th, 19th to 20th century, herbalism, homeopathy were very, very much the way of getting health care, medical care.
Mhm.
They kind of started getting pushed out around 1920 in
Mhm.
favor of the more mechanistic surgery and drugs approach
Okay.
that we are all steeped in right now.
Mhm. Yes. I see, that's interesting. That's a whole other conversation probably.
Indeed.
Were you and I have to ask this just because, this is the way my mind works. How was it for you to move out of the academic medicine world? I mean, I was it seen as a betrayal by any of your mentors or that that world?
I don't know because I my mentor, my grad school mentor, and I have remained in touch over the years, and I don't believe that's how he felt. We never really talked about it. He was always very supportive of you do what you need to do, both in the personal realm and in the academic realm. You know, he
Mm,
was very supportive of, very involved in my family life. He would, came to my kids' birthdays and stuff like
okay.
he and his wife were at my wedding. So
Friends, okay.
yes, that was different. But with everybody else, I have not stayed in touch. So I actually wouldn't know how they felt about it.
Mm,
For
mhm,
me, it was a heart wrenching decision to make because I loved teaching. I love teaching.
mm,
But when I finally did decide to resign, the weight was lifted. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm free. I can go do this next thing.
mm.
And I've never looked back. It's
Was
been
it
beautiful.
scary at all to leave that world that is very, well, it's accepted, it's reinforced, it's funded. I mean, it just seems like you were going out and maybe I'm wrong about this, but it's like going out into the wild.
So it wasn't as scary because many years prior, my husband and I decided to not put our kids in the school system.
Mhm.
So we homeschooled from the beginning. And that decision was scarier for me because it was very, very different from what I knew.
Mm.
But as I started stepping out of the system there, I became more emboldened to just question everything and ask and wonder and try different things. And so by the time I was facing the decision to get out of academia, I wasn't as scared. I was just willing and ready because I knew there were better ways of doing not just the education part, but the health part.
Mhm. Wow, that's a really courageous move, I just think about the systems that you were leaving, the structures you were leaving, that are very well respected uh, and so reinforced in our culture. It's just interesting that you were able to, make that move and have the confidence to say, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna try something else."
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
when your kids are involved, you probably know this.
Mm.
You become that mama bear, right? And you just
Mm.
realize, okay, I'm going to try it because what else have I got to lose?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, hi, Zesties. In addition to being a podcaster and psychotherapist, I'm an avid thrifter. And I think it's something you either love or you hate. I've always loved finding treasures, and it makes me happy to keep things out of the landfill. You may already know that fast fashion is a real scourge on the environment. And I have a few podcast episodes that explore this. One of my favorites is with Eric Minter, who's the world's authority on the secondhand market. His book, Secondhand, is really recommended. And here I'm digressing. The reality is that I love to thrift, but I also like to wear the same basic outfit. So I've started an account on eBay I wanted to tell you about. Here's a humble brag. I have an eye for quality pieces. Linen and cashmere are my favorites, and I'd love you to check it out. Go on eBay and type in Nikki's Thrifty, and it's NICKY apostrophe S, Thrifty with a Y, and see what you think. I'd love your feedback. So, can you talk a little bit about the primitive reflexes, because I have been doing this work for a long time and I was not familiar with it until very recently. My travel partner
Mm.
started doing some of these exercises, and I just was wanted to know more, and she said, "Oh, talk to Amanda." So uh, tell us, introduce us to this whole world of what is a primitive reflex and why do we want to uh, take care of it.
Yeah. So I think of primitive reflexes as our superpower.
Mm.
They are reflexive movements that develop as early as 5 weeks gestation in utero. And the baby, the fetus, is responding to inputs from the environment, vibration, movements from mom's voice, stress. Eventually, as mom's belly gets super big, if she exposes it to light, that fetus is going to be directly exposed and influenced by light inputs, sound inputs. And so that is the bread and butter of the nervous system as it develops. It will always develop in response to inputs.
Mm.
And then the birth process is a very, very powerful input that
Mm.
the baby responds to and moves in response to, and then going through the birth canal and coming out into the world and being exposed to gravity. All of these things influence the nervous system, and the nervous system responds in kind with movements, reflexive movements. We're not
Mm.
thinking about them, they're involuntary, and they are survival movements. They are all a different series of movements that we perform in response to inputs in order to live and to develop and to thrive. But primitive reflexes, like the name might indicate, are just meant to be there at the beginning. If the system is developing properly and there is health, those primitive reflexes will disappear. They will integrate. They will go quietly into the night and set the stage for lifelong postural reflexes to come in and run the show. So sitting, standing, being able to sit and pay attention. Think a kid in school paying attention to
Mhm.
the front of the classroom. Eventually, as we develop, executive function, ability to make the right choices, to choose right from wrong, all of that is
Wow.
predicated on a solid primitive reflex foundation. And there is a possibility that the reflexes don't integrate, or if they integrate, exposure to trauma, uh, to toxins, emotional trauma, physical trauma, what have you, can cause these primitive reflexes to wake up again, to activate. So, why it matters is because we now understand that a lot of things that we see in people today, from ADHD to other types of developmental issues, sensory processing disorder, autism, um, later on in life, chronic pain, joint degeneration, a lot of osteoarthritis is directly linked to an active primitive reflex that didn't get to integrate or became active again and never reintegrated.
Mhm.
Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, all of these things are directly connected to uh, faulty neural circuits in the brainstem and the limbic system of the human brain that are not talking to each other properly because of
Mhm.
active primitive reflexes. Kids with eye issues, people with vision issues, short-sighted, nearsightedness, farsightedness, all of these things can be addressed and supported when we address active primitive reflexes.
And what does that look like when we're addressing this? What's the actual exercise look like?
So there's a number of different ways that people have come up with for integrating reflexes. The tool that I love because it's so simple, is called rhythmic movement training, RMT. It was devised by a Swedish psychiatrist named Harold Blomberg. He passed away a few years ago. But before he did that, he managed to hold a number of training sessions all over the world. And he basically managed to produce a number of instructors. And so I never met Dr. Blomberg, but one of his students, Kate Wagner, is the US distributor for this work. And I
Mm.
trained under Kate. And
Mhm.
rhythmic movement training consists of a series of super simple rhythmic movements that recapitulate those movements that we do in utero and during the first 1 to 2 years after birth. Those are the reflex movements that baby does in response to different inputs from the environment. And what Dr. Blomberg noticed was that there was a repetitive reproducible pattern, if you will. Baby does
Mhm.
XYZ movement, and then a few weeks or months later, XYZ posture develops. And the movements preceded, you know how we look for milestones for our babies, right?
Yes.
The being able to turn from back to front, and then eventually baby can sit up and hold his head up, and then eventually baby turns onto the tummy and gets on all fours and rocks for a little bit, and eventually he's off, crawling.
Mhm.
And then before you know it, the baby's standing up and doing the furniture walking, and then all of a sudden they're off walking on their own. All of these are beautifully pre-programmed, if you will, sequences of movements that happen when the baby is exposed to the proper stimulus so that he or she can develop the response, reflexive movement that results from that.
Mhm. What it looked like from my where I was standing was just a gentle rocking movement.
Yes. Yep. Very
It
rhythmic.
Yeah, and it
Rock.
looked really there's something that really looked soothing and almost like, uh, self-nurturing and calming, and there was a for this is not a clinical word, but just lovely about it. It just looked very, um, kind of peaceful. Does that does that fit?
Well, and it fits absolutely, because remember I told you these movements are sort of a safety uh, mechanism, if you will. I hate to use the word
Mhm.
mechanism, but they are survival reflexes, and they convey a sense of safety to the nervous
Okay.
system.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mhm.
so, nothing in the body will get fixed if the body doesn't feel safe. At the
Mm.
end of the day, everything is about safety and nurturing energy levels in the body.
It's so
When
interesting you say that because what I understand about autism is it's a general sense of danger.
Absolutely.
Always in danger mode, always in
Yep.
anxiety mode. So that seems to really fit what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and so nourishing the healthy balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous
Mm,
systems is really the name of the game with anything from
mhm,
autism presentations to back pain to,
mm,
osteoarthritis of the hip to gut issues to heart issues to neurodegenerative conditions. It all goes back to, does that nervous system feel safe? And that signal for
mm,
safety is generated at the level of the brainstem and the limbic system. So
mm.
in other
You're
words,
talking about going back and back and back and back to the absolute origin here.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no amount. And so the reason I love this work is because it goes back to that root. I know root cause has been a term that has been bastardized now, in my opinion,
Okay.
but it's addressing the inputs into the nervous system.
I
Every other
see.
physical therapy, occupational therapy approach out there is looking to fix the outputs. But think about it,
Mm.
Nicole. If you don't address the inputs, how can you expect the outputs to change?
So it's you're picking off, as a metaphor I'll often use with clients, with a dandelion, you're picking off the top bud, but you got a taproot there that you have not addressed.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
And so my motto is address the inputs and the outputs address themselves.
Mm,
And
and
so when
well, I'm sorry, were you able to find some relief with your wrist pain after you discovered these, these methods?
oh well yeah. I mean, I've been off all pain meds for 4 years now.
Mm.
The pain that got me to try rhythmic movement training was I threw my lower back out feeding the chickens one morning. And I
Oh.
showed up to my who is now my mentor and dear friend Dave Boyland. I showed up into in his office and said, "Hey Dave, can you
Oh.
help me with this?" And I was walking crooked, and he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Absolutely." And so we got on the floor on the table on one of his treatment tables in his PT office, and he started showing me these movements, and I looked at him and I scoffed and I said, "What on earth are you having me do? This is so dumb, Dave. What the heck?" And he smiled and he walked away, check on another client, and then came back. And, you know, fast forward 5 years, and I'm like, okay, this is a thing of beauty. I ended up training alongside him because I took all the courses and caught up to where he was, and he and I were going to trainings together.
Oh, wow.
Um, but it's a thing of beauty, and it's helped with everything. My experience with the back pain, because I had had sciatica in my 20s, and this was fixing to become another sciatica situation, and I just could not do that. I was like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, no, right.
So, but my first experience was feeling the pain, getting on the floor at 1 a.m. in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and rocking. And I realized that I
Mhm.
wasn't afraid of the pain anymore. When that fear left, the bracing that my body had gotten so used to doing for decades started to melt away. And before I knew it, all the muscles and the tendons and the bones and all the at the energetic level too, a lot of the breaks were being removed, and I started moving more easily. And now anytime I feel pain anywhere, I'm more in awe of my body because I'm learning that that pain isn't a malfunction. It's a communication. It's a message that my body is trying to give me, and
Oh,
cultivating
we
that
got the whole
relationship.
I'm laughing because I hear your rooster, and then
Yep.
I've got my 18-year-old Jack Russell announcing a visitor. So we got a whole we got the whole crew here.
Hey, it's life, Nicole.
I
It's
love
life.
it. That is hysterical. Have you taught your kids, I mean, dumb question, I'm sure, the rhythmic movement,
Oh
for
yeah.
their own use? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we've done it.
how has it been for them?
So it's a very wonderful tool for me as a mom because I can go in and do it even when they're sleeping, although they're teens now, so it's not as easy.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a beautiful, soothing tool, just to help nourish their nervous system, and it's in combination with a number of other things that I've added to my toolkit, and I pull them out depending on the situation, right? The herbs, the teas, the oils, the uh, whatever. But a lot of it is just getting outside, barefoot in the ground, under all of the light of the sun, and just breathing. And we bring in the rhythmic movements as needed. Yeah.
That's something I remember you talking to me about when we first, chatted, and you talked about, remind me, a light diet? Did I
Yeah.
get that right?
Yep. Yep. So the other foundational input that we've lost track of as a society, especially in Western medical models, is the fact that light is an essential nutrient.
Mm,
We all evolved under all of the light of the sun, all the full
mm,
spectrum from ultraviolet B all the way through the Roy G. Bivs, the visible spectrum, up into the near, mid, and far infrared spectrum. So we evolved under all of that. Our
mhm.
mitochondria require infrared light in order to run the electron transport chain to make
Okay.
energy. And we have a number of other photoreceptors on our skin and in our eyes and all over our bodies, not just the photoreceptors that I learned about in graduate school, the rods and the cones for vision, but
Mhm.
non-visual photoreceptors, which absorb UV light, absorb the other colors, absorb infrared, and our body requires that light in order to function. And
Mm.
in this 21st century kind of existence where we're indoors most of the time, behind triple, quadruple paned windows, under artificial light that emits only blue light,
With
imagine the
sunscreen
nutritional,
on.
and with all the screens on, imagine the nutritional deficit we're facing.
Mm,
We are
mhm.
malnourished in the light department.
That's
And
fascinating.
so I talk
How
about
do
my
you
diet.
and I have an idea that what you might say, but, you and I both live in upstate New York where, I mean, we get a lot of cloud cover about 6 months out of the year. Do you supplement?
Nope, because our bodies are so wise and so incredibly designed that as long as we're giving our bodies the right light input, in other words, getting outside as often as possible, our
Mhm.
biology, our gut microbiome, everything inside us will shift accordingly and adjust accordingly. And so we're going into the next 5 months of the year where we're not getting UVB light coming through the atmosphere. That means we can't make vitamin D. It doesn't mean that we have to turn around and start supplementing. Far from it, because it turns out that melatonin and vitamin D act on the same receptor on our cells. And so, what that means for us at this latitude in upstate New York is that we don't supplement vitamin D. We just make sure we're getting all the light that we can in the other ranges of the spectrum, and we honor darkness so that melatonin can come out and do what it does.
Mm.
Winter, non UVB times of the year are the times for our body to heal. That is when we
Mhm.
heal. That is when we restore. That is when our cells do all the house cleaning that they need to do. It is the
Mm.
most powerful time of year for every single body to restore itself. Um,
Wow, that's a great reframe because many of us, and I'm sure you've heard this, we start dreading the winter because there's not a lot of sun. I always see the sky looks like dirty dishwater, and the days are short, and
I
people
was I
feel
was
that.
that person. I hated winter all my entire life, and even in
Really?
Argentina, where winters aren't as harsh,
You're
it
right.
was it was gross. I just loathed it, and then I came to Syracuse, New York, for the love of all that is holy. I'm like, oh, I'm
What
really
are you doing here? What the
exactly.
yeah.
But I'm telling you, as I embarked on this journey and I started embracing the cold and I started learning about what cold and darkness actually do for me,
Mm.
that was another powerful input switch. Not living in a 72-degree, year round environment, not living in a
Mhm.
lit environment from, the moment I woke up till midnight.
Oh,
I was a night
man.
owl for most of my life. Now I'm falling asleep at 9 p.m. because
Mhm.
I've reset my circadian rhythm. My body craves that dark time at night. And as we go into winter, when we honor the signals, when we embrace the cold, when we honor the darkness, everything else gets sorted out. That's when you can bring in
Mm.
intermittent fasting. That's when you can, yeah, I know. We
Mm.
need to just get on a number of other calls, Nicole.
Yeah, yeah, there's so much, but, people, as you well know, are so overwhelmed and feeling like they're just struggling to do the basics because the inputs are pretty harsh right now. So, but this idea of the light, I think, is so vital that we often miss, right?
Yeah.
And then this rhythmic movement. Amanda, tell people how they can find out more about you, what other services you provide. Can you give us all that information?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So I have a coaching company, wellness education company. I have a website, oraioswellness.com. Oraios is spelled Horaios,
Mhm.
wellness.com.
Okay.
Oraios is a Greek word that's been with me since my teens, and it
Okay.
means it means the beautiful time, the perfect time.
Ah.
And people told me, "Oh, you got to pick an easier name for your business." And I tried, but here we are. I
Mhm.
my my belief is, when you start doing rhythmic movements with me, you'll be able to roll your R's and pronounce the name of my company.
There's a lot of added benefits.
Exactly.
Okay,
But yeah, so I
beautiful.
offer private coaching. I do
Mhm.
offer a group coaching setup as well that is virtual. I offer a number of I offer monthly master classes. I really love the teaching aspect of this, and so I've been doing an in-person once a month presentation with rhythmic movement time at the local yoga studio here in Tully, New York, where I live. And then
Mhm.
I offer the same master class again online later in the month. And so if you go to my website under the group offerings, you'll find the master classes link, and you can learn more there about what's coming up this fall. Speaking of nervous system nourishment, I've decided to offer a series of talks in October, November, December, where we're going to be really focusing on how to support the nervous system at this time of year where holidays come
Mm.
up, everything
Oh,
becomes even more revved up and stressful, but also dark.
yeah.
The
Oh,
darkness
Thank
can
you
be
so
beautiful.
very
much for joining
stressful
us
for
on
people
Zestful
when they don't
Aging.
understand
If you
how to
like the
use it to their
podcast,
benefit.
please
I
share it
just
with some of
love
your
that
friends.
reframe
Our
because I know
theme
we're all
song
kind of
is All I Did
racing,
Was Wait
and
for You by
it
Kjartan
just it
Abel.
feels like everything,
Visit
and maybe this is it makes
Kjartan-Abel.
sense,
That's
but just everything slows down, and I feel like a
K-J-A-R-T-A-N
little mole
Abel.
rat underneath the ground.
ABEL.com
And
I
it's
feel
the
to
like
way it
hear
should
more
be.
of
yeah,
That's what we were
Kjartan's
well,
work.
designed. Yeah.
And our
okay,
technical
yeah, that's
director
that. I
is
had not
Stephen
thought of that,
Litweiler.
and
And
that's
stay tuned
really
next week
lovely.
for another
I so
interview with a
appreciate your
fascinating
time,
and
Amanda,
inspiring
and
guest.
I can't wait to meet
See
you
you
in
then.
person in one of these trainings that I have been hearing about for months. You are a well-known teacher and mentor in the area, and I'm really excited to meet you. Thank you so much for spending time. And I just wanted to remind people that Amanda's website is spelled HORAIOS wellness.com, and there's lots of good stuff there. Thank you so much.
Nicole, thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity. And I look forward to meeting you soon as well in person.